It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we always have to have the last word, don't we, Mr. I Always Know Better? The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Facebook page Nagoya Comedy.
What did I tell you?
It's Talk Funny.
Here's Mark Bailey. Mark Bailey and Mike Miller back on Talk Funny.
Great to be back.
So, Mike, did you catch earlier this year the Oscars show?
I watched the monologue by Jimmy Kimmel, and I thought he had a few good jokes in there, but I think it's very hard to be really funny at the Oscars, especially after what happened last year. You know, such a legacy.
Something happened. What happened last year?
I don't know. It was... What was that happened last year?
When Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, because Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife. Chris Rock was very lucky that he didn't make a joke about Alec Baldwin. Because he would have killed him.
But the joke would have killed. Literally.
He literally killed on stage.
Did Alec Baldwin win the prize for best special effects?
I think most realistic
visual effects.
that looks like you just actually killed somebody. Because you did. Have you seen any of those movies so far?
Recently, I saw a bit of Everything Everywhere All at Once on the airplane, but it was a little bit hard to follow, and I was tired, and so I kind of gave up halfway through, but it looked like a good film. And then I watched recently the All Quiet on the Western Front, which I thought was a masterpiece, but hard to watch. I'm not surprised it didn't win Best Picture, because it was the kind of movie that was beautiful, it was poignant, it was well written, it was well acted, but it was a war movie and violent, and I think a lot of people don't like that.
That movie blew me away. I thought it should have won everything.
Yeah.
It's actually an anti-war movie.
Very anti-war, yeah.
And it shows you the real grit, and, you know, I love the juxtaposition of these poor guys in the field dying, getting their legs blown off, getting crushed by tanks, and then you cut to the French and the British and the German prime ministers. They're sitting there sipping tea.
Right.
They're not experiencing war.
Yeah.
They should at least be on the front lines.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, we're not going to surrender. We're going to let the war go on another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no skin off your back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can let it go. You know, it's just the same thing with sometimes some of our Pentagon guys have said about the Ukraine war.
Mm-hmm.
And they said something to the effect of, no, we're not interested in an armistice or a peace or anything like that. We're going to fight until the last Ukrainian. I'm like, well...
That's really big of them to say that.
How nice of you. Shouldn't the Ukrainians be able to decide that?
We're going to fight to the last Ukraine.
Yeah,
well, you know, Mao...
We're not sending ground troops.
You know, Mao was famous when he went to the Comintern at one time. Khrushchev wrote about it in his memoirs. And Mao said, we've got to attack right now. And we've got to launch the missiles. And Khrushchev was like appalled. He was like, what do you mean? We don't want a nuclear war. It's the end of life on Earth. And Mao was like, yeah, well, we got billions of Chinese. We got millions of Chinese. We'll survive. Literally, this is what he said, apparently, according to Khrushchev.
Wow.
That's pretty cold, man.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. I did finally see it. But when I first heard the title, it's kind of like Karnak from Johnny Carson. I say, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then what's the question? The question is, when you turn 55, what on your body hurts? Everything. Everywhere. All at once. I think I told Steve had a birthday, and I said, be careful when you turn 55. Because when I turned 55 the morning of my birthday, I got up, I'm like, it's just a number. I took one step, just excruciating pain in my left ankle, and I still have it. And you know, like Louis C.K. says, I go to the doctor, and he goes, yeah, that's a thing now.
Yeah, that was a good bit. Well, it's kind of like a car, you know, when you reach the end of the 3-year warranty and everything just starts to go all at once because it's been made that way.
Yeah. And I said, well, what can I do? It's like the old Henny Youngman joke. Seriously, a doctor told me this. He said, what's the problem? I said, it hurts when I walk on my left ankle. And he said, well, try not to walk with that leg. Okay. The old Henny Youngman joke is, doctor says, what's the problem? Henny Youngman has his hand and bends it, and he says, it hurts when I bend my hand. And he said, well, don't do that. And I had another true story. I went to the doc. Turned out to be my bag was too heavy. But so I write on the blackboard with my right hand, and it hurt every time it still hurts. Every time I raise my hand, it hurts. And he said, well, do you need to write on the blackboard? I'm a teacher. I think it's probably kind of important. I'm a teacher, but I don't write on the blackboard. I don't hand out flyers. I don't hand out things. I don't write anything down.
You remind me of a certain teacher at one of your schools, I think,
Yeah.
that we talked about on a previous podcast.
Yeah. I forgot the other. Oh, the whale.
I never saw The Whale, but is it where can you the problem is in Japan, some of these things aren't streaming on certain platforms we get here, or maybe it's on Disney Plus or something. I don't know. They're all on all the different platforms.
A lot of them don't come to Netflix. But Everything Everywhere All at Once, I did like that.
Yeah, it was good.
But I lose track with what's won everything. I already thought for some reason, because I saw it a long time ago, that All Quiet on the Western Front, I thought that already won last year, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what won last year?
Oh, I didn't watch last year. I mean, the only thing I remember about last year was the Chris Rock incident.
Yeah, nobody was paying attention.
I wasn't watching the Oscars. The thing is, in Japan too, it's hard to watch the Oscars. You have to have you have to have pay TV to watch the Oscars. So you can't, and ABC won't show anything. They'll just put up the monologue after the Oscars. So you can't watch it live unless you put on an eye patch and sail the seas, which we don't do.
No,
we do not advocate for that.
So we're going to make this a short podcast, and this is Mark Bailey, Mike Miller, and Talk Funny.